Hey guys, welcome to the Follow Me Show. You are here with your lovely host, Dee Dee, and
the one, the only, the ultimate, the bringer of rain.
You could just say Drew
Pelletier.
Drew of Follow Me Realty. And today we are bringing you, as always, the tips and tricks, do's and don'ts of the modern real estate agent. And we're really excited about this show, as with all shows, because anybody who wants to sit around and listen to us talk about things, we will gladly give you our knowledge. So today is all about...
Well, we're kind of geeks about this. It is lead generation.
Yes.
Like, if you're a real estate agent, this is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Yes, everything's fine and well, sales, closings, etc., etc. But you can't do any of that without lead gen. We're geeks about this, so I'm very excited to bring you this subject today.
So guys, today we, like Drew said, we're going to talk about lead generation, and we're really excited to talk about this because it always boils down to lead gen. How are you going to fill your pipeline? Having more closings, having more buyers, and having more sellers. And so today we're going to talk about some really great buyer lead generation and some seller lead generation. Listen, I'm going to say this right now. I'm going to get it all out of the way. When it comes to lead generation, no matter what we say to you guys today, nothing matters and nothing will work unless you work. It's really plain and simple. I mean, there's no magic secret or a magic source of lead gen that's going to work better than the other. Well, I digress. There are some that work better than the other, but it's not going to work unless you make the decision to go all in and promote yourself at the same time. Okay, so we're going to talk to you guys about the tips and tricks, do's and don'ts of the modern real estate agent again here on this episode and every episode. So if you really like what we're talking about, please give it a big thumbs up if you are watching on YouTube.
Smash that like button.
Like it on SoundCloud, on iTunes, subscribe. And by the time you listen to this, we'll probably be on Google Play. That's why I said the like button, subscribe. So yeah, guys, we're really excited to talk to you about this today on this beautiful Saturday night here.
All right. So break us down. What's, in your opinion, what's the most important, starting A to Z? What are the kinds of lead gen, etc., etc.?
So we're going to get out of the way the first one that a lot of you have either used before, have questions about, or you definitely want to know, like what is the ins and outs of it. And it is Zillow. So everybody talks about Zillow, right? Is it really effective? Does it really work? Why is it so damn expensive? There are a lot of things and questions that people ask. So I am here to tell you that I myself have used Zillow, and I would say, a self-proclaimed Zillow queen, as in I knew how to perfect Zillow in a way that not only was I paying for lead generation on Zillow, or the teams that I was with were paying for Zillow, but I knew really how to see it through to the very end. So, okay, Zillow is for specifically buyer lead generation, although there are a lot of sellers who will, want to know their home evaluations or what's my home worth, et cetera, et cetera. And so they'll go on Zillow, and sometimes, a lot of times on Trulia too, guys, because you have to figure Zillow purchased Trulia back in 2014. And so essentially whatever happens on Trulia is a Zillow corporation. It's happening there too. So for sellers and buyers alike, you can get lead gen, but it is mainly geared toward buyers. So basically with Zillow, it's like this, just to kind of break it down really briefly for anyone who's never used Zillow. If you go on Zillow as a buyer, you see a house, you like it, and on the right-hand side, depending on how you're looking at it on the desktop, on the right-hand side, you're going to first see the listing agent's information. Then after the listing agent's information, you're going to see about 3 other agents below them that says, basically option A, option B, and option C. So if you're a buyer, you can select one of those agents to contact you if you want more information on the home.
Hence the reason it is so important to have your profile on point,
yes,
your picture on point, and your social media on point.
Yes.
Because they're going to click on the person that is most attractive to them. So whatever catches their eye, they're going to click on. And then when they click on it, what do they see? I digress. Go ahead.
So they're going to see three profile. So basically, the best thing that you can do is have your headshot stand out above all the others. So it is, like Drew said, super crucial to have that happen. Now, these people, these 3 agents that you see, may not necessarily be the same 3 that you see if you were to, let's say, refresh the page or look at another listing, because on the back end of Zillow, every agent pays for a specific amount of what is called impressions. Now they call it market share, but basically it's the same thing.
It is impressions. It's market share. So let me break it down. Basically what happens is this. Depending on how much you're paying, you're going to get a certain amount of market share or impressions. So, for example, as Dee Dee said, when you refresh your page, you may come up with a whole new set of realtors. And the reason being is because certain realtors only pay for a certain amount of things. So, for example, if you pay for 100% of the impressions or the market share, then
you're
what will happen
every
single time? If you pay for 80% of the time, then guess what? You're going to come up 80% of the time. If you pay for 8% of the time, guess what? You're going to come up 8% of the time.
So, hence
the reason it is so important for you to completely dominate your zip code. You're going to want to have 80%.
You're skipping ahead. Hold on.
Okay.
You're skipping ahead. So let's go back a little bit. So basically, Zillow is a place where, as an agent, you can pay for a certain amount of times to be seen. To put it in layman's terms, you can pay for 30% of the time, and this is in any given month, 60% of the time, 50% of the time, or 100% of the time. Like every single time somebody looks at a specific listing on a specific zip code, not a specific listing, on a listing in a specific zip code. Let's take 32827 for instance. So in Florida, that is Lake Nona. If you have paid for 100% impressions, then that means your face will be seen on every single listing, unless, and this is where it gets really tricky, and I'm not gonna inundate you with a lot of information here, but just to say, unless either a brokerage or a builder has bought out their specific listings, you're going to be seen on everyone's listings, even if you're not the listing agent. It's not going to say that you're the listing agent. You're just one of the agents who are essentially a premier agent. So I'm going to back off a little bit on that. That's kind of the gist of it. But like Drew said, essentially, that's why it's so important, number one, for you to have a strong online presence, because when they look at these people, it's kind of like, and we've talked about this a little bit, it's like auto-suggestion. If someone sees your face over and over and over again, you want them to see something that immediately says, I'm professional, I'm ready to work, whatever can catch their attention the quickest. You're looking for snippets of information to give to people because they're going to see it all the time.
It starts to seep into the subconscious.
Yeah, and that's what farming is all about, guys. So like back in the day when people would do a lot of mail outs, although some people still do them, when mail outs were essentially the only way to farm, so to speak, the goal was not necessarily that they immediately pick up your card in the mail and say, oh, here's a realtor in my mailbox, let me call them. The goal was they see you all the time, so you automatically become the authority within the area because they're like, oh, they just sold a house here. Oh, they just sold a house here. And these are all within my neighborhoods. I keep getting this mail out. So the same thing is happening with Zillow, where they're seeing your face all the time. Again, depending on how many impressions you've paid for. Now, here's where Zillow can get a little tricky and also expensive. Depending on how desirable a specific area is or how many leads are calling in constantly to see the listings in an area, it can get very expensive to buy into Zillow. But the ROI, which is the return on the investment, can absolutely be worth it. It just depends on how much money you're willing to spend. And also keep in mind a second thing. When it comes to Zillow, you're typically, right now at least, you're signing about a 6-month contract. So you're paying for 6 months, or you're committing 6 months to paying every month that certain amount, unless you want to increase it, which you can with Zillow. So there are, I wouldn't say cons, I'd say that there are pros and also things to consider, because when it comes to Zillow, quite honestly, guys, if you do it right, it is always worth it to pay for Zillow lead generation. But I will tell you, as a new agent, unless you are putting in at least 50% and you're getting at least 10 leads a week,
so to be clear,
it's not worth it.
So to be clear, 50% of what?
50% of the impressions, meaning if you're not seen at least half the time. Because, okay, guys, think about it this way. Buyers, when they start looking at a house, most of the time, at least those who are actually serious about buying a house, they're not looking at houses once and done. They're looking like madmen. You have to basically consider that buyers are always going to be on Zillow. They're going to look over and over and over and over and over again if they're serious about buying a home. So that means that if you are going to be paying for the impressions, you have to at least be on there half of the time. Obviously, if you can be on there 100% of the time, then do it. So you have to be, number one, specific about the zip code you want to buy into. Is this a zip code that you really want to farm in and around, for one? And for two, are you willing to put forth the capital necessary? So for those of you who are coming into real estate with a lot of capital in the beginning, then Zillow is a great place for you to kind of like have a trial and error, so to speak. But if you're not coming in with a lot of capital in the beginning, it's not something I would suggest doing.
Zillow has gone up in price quite a bit, and they continue to go up. So this could be a good thing or a bad thing. I guess the market will see what will happen. But if you're a new real estate agent, it is almost impossible to buy into Zillow at a rate that is good for you. So for example, where a zip code used to cost you maybe $1,000 to $2,000 a month to get 80% impressions, it's now up to about $6,000 a month. And unless you have that kind of capital, like Didi said, it is almost impossible to really get a foothold and leads that you need to get in order to keep your business afloat. Now, the fortunate thing is by Zillow doing that, and again, I'm not knocking Zillow. I truly like Zillow. We have made a lot of money off of Zillow.
Yeah.
But the fortunate thing about them raising the prices is it actually makes way for other opportunity and other means to create lead gen, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Zillow is one of those things where you'll see a lot of people that bash them saying it's not worth it, it's not worth it, etc., etc. And honestly, guys, I couldn't disagree more. Zillow is absolutely worth it. It just depends on what stage of development you're in as a real estate agent, or the amount of capital you want to put forth, or even the amount of follow-up that you're willing to do. Because when it comes also, and this is a huge point, I know we've spent a lot of time on Zillow, but this is a huge point.
Okay.
Is that with Zillow, unless you are willing to contact those leads that come in immediately, do not waste your money, because they want to see homes and they want to see them now. And we've talked about this on a previous podcast, which was called First Contact to Close for buyers. Unless you are planning on calling them as soon as that lead comes in, do not bother, which is why Zillow is so good for teams, because with teams you can like round robin the leads. But if it's just you, it's not something that is worth it unless you're willing to drop everything you're doing right then and call them and go show them the house.
Exactly.
Or at least call.
Yeah, which, as a new realtor and as someone that's hungry, you should be willing to do.
Right.
But if you're not willing to do that, then...
And that's okay. Just don't buy into Zillow.
Exactly. Don't buy into Zillow, because it's too much money and you will be burning a hole in your pocket really, really quickly.
Yeah. Okay, so then the next form of buyer lead generation, and again, guys, there are about 10 different ways to skin a cat, but the ones we would recommend, there are actually 2 other ones. The next one is Facebook ads. Now, Facebook ads is something that is up and coming a little bit more in the last few years, and year or two. And we're not going to get too much into Facebook ads because, quite honestly, no matter what industry you're in, and no matter whether it's buyers or sellers, Facebook ads are actually a really good method of lead generation if done right. And I'll just say this: the amount of investment capital you have to put in for Facebook ads completely, how do I explain?
It's about 90% less than Zillow. So
right.
So
the ROI is definitely worth it.
So as far as like your capital goes, the rate of return for Facebook ads versus Zillow.
Rate of return. Thank you.
Yes, I didn't even know that was in my head until I said it, and you said, I'm like, oh wow, I
it
just
was in
said
my
that.
brain.
Bingo.
So essentially, the Facebook ads are definitely cheaper, is what we're saying. Bottom line, and your ROI is definitely going to be well worth it. However, you need to be with the right company who can do it for you. Now, if you go in yourself and you do Facebook ads and you play around with it and you are successful, then hey, more power to you. But I would strongly recommend getting with a company that actually does Facebook ads well.
Or there are some classes you can take on Udemy or
Udemy.com.
Udemy.com.
Udemy.
Yes, and so really quick, let me break down how Facebook works. Facebook is a lot more in depth than Zillow. You can really niche down to your target market. However, Zillow being Zillow, all they do is deal with real estate. But with Facebook, you can really delve deep into the kind of buyer you want to work with, the kind of seller you want to work with. What do they like to buy beyond real estate?
What is called lookalike audiences, guys.
Lookalike audience. So, for example, let's say that you're in the luxury market, right? And you have one of your clients drives a Porsche. They look like X. They
watch a certain kind of TV show.
You can actually target that exact same kind of profile on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say LinkedIn. You can target that exact same kind of profile on Facebook for literally 90% less of the cost, and really try to funnel them and get leads based off of just their profile on Facebook.
Right. And I think one of the reasons why people don't like to touch Facebook is because, number one, it can be so targeted. And it is something that you have to actually take the time to understand and test and play with it and see what works and see what doesn't, which is why I suggest just outsourcing it. I'm going to always suggest where you can outsource it, as long as it's within the right outsourcing, as long as you're outsourcing to the people that are actually do it best. So that's all I have to say about Facebook ads. It works, guys.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's all about Facebook. And I know that we kind of breezed over it, but that's the gist. I mean, it can get super, super detailed when it comes to Facebook, but the kind of content that you're promoting in order to actually get in front of people, it can vary in a lot of different ways. It can be a new listing. It could simply be something like, hey, if you're looking to get a free home evaluation, check here. It can be something super unique. The next form of lead generation is going to be for sellers. When it comes to sellers, guys, there again is really no magic secret. It is truly cold calling. Cold calling for sale by owner, otherwise known as FSBOs, and expired leads. So no matter where you are in the US or really anywhere in North America, you can always get a hold of a cold calling list, FSBOs and expireds. And what we like to use is from myplusleads.com. So they're going to give you a list of all of the for sale by owner and expired leads really in real time, immediately. So as soon as a house goes expired, for anybody who has never heard of it before, you're going to get an immediate list from these MyPlusLead lists, and it's going to be within like a 25 to 50 mile radius of any listings that have gone expired. Now, for sale by owners, they pull from anywhere from Craigslist to Zillow, and so you can call both of them. Now, the kind of scripts that you use.
1 second. So before you go further, so for people that don't necessarily understand, because they're kind of new, maybe there's some people out there, what exactly are expired leads or expired listings, and what does that mean?
Okay, so expired leads are those listings that were on the MLS, but they have either removed their listing from a specific agent. So basically, you already know that they want to sell their house, which is really easy because you already know they want to sell, but for some reason or another, they have not been able to sell their house. A lot of times it could come down to the agent, the marketing, or what have you, or maybe just the specific seller. Whatever the situation is, you can start to call them because essentially their listing agreement has expired with their listing agent. And so these are the people you're going to call, and you'll say things like, there are tons of free scripts out there, but basically you're calling to say, hey, I see that your house did not sell with a specific agent, but I'm sure because it has been listed before that you still want the house to sell, so I can help you with that. So the way in which you go about it is honestly a podcast within itself as far as what you're saying. But you are calling these people. They don't know you. You don't know them most of the time. And you're saying, hey, I can help you sell. And so that's what it is in a nutshell. So when it comes to sellers, that is one of the best ways you can get it, because it's kind of a numbers game when it comes to that, right? So you're calling people constantly saying, hey, I want to help you sell your house. The other person didn't, they weren't able to sell for you, or whatever, the house was not able to sell. This is how I can do it differently. So you can get anywhere from maybe just a few leads a day to over 100, just again, depending on your radius, where you're looking to sell. This isn't something that has to be zip code specific. This can just be within your city or your greater area. So for us, for instance, the greater Orlando area, there are listings that come up all the time that they still want to sell their house, but it didn't. So you can start calling them. You can get really creative when it comes to FSBOs and expireds too. Again, there are different scripts you can use, but you can get really creative in the sense that you can tell them, hey, listen, if you're really good at social media, which we talk about all the time, I can market your house better than any of the other agents out there because I'm very big on social media. And this is one of the ways that we were able to capture a lot of clients. And so if you come in as an agent who knows how to price the house and knows how to market it, you are going to definitely be able to sell the house. But you have to be confident when you're talking to people, because your first impression, all you can really do is give your information. Now, what happens after that is if they're Googling you, and most people are going to start to Google who you are, especially if you're calling and they have no idea who you are, they need to put a face to a name or a name to a face, then they're going to start to see, well, who is this person? So if you're someone who is very big and have an online presence, they're immediately going to trust you versus somebody who calls and says, hey, yeah, I can sell your house, and they use the same script as everybody else, and you can't really find them online. So when it comes to cold calling, your online presence is not only important, it's essential. So cold calling is one of the best ways for lead generation. Let's just put it at that. It really is hands down, but you have to have, you have to walk the walk, essentially, that you're talking. A lot of you may not want to cold call, and you may be really terrified to cold call, and you're like, I don't even want to spend the time to do that.
Bingo.
So
exactly what I was going to say. Go ahead.
So thank you so much for telling me that. So what you want to do then, guys, it's not the end of the road, and it's not the end of the world. If you're somebody who just doesn't want to cold call, honestly, although I'm really good at it, I like talking to people, and quite honestly, when they turn me down, it's even easier to sell, because at that point, I'm like, well, I don't have anything to lose. So now I'm going to go ahead and send them a follow-up text with a video message, okay?
Not to mention you're going to pry them on the conversation, which I've
Exactly.
seen you do. You're like, well...
I ask them question after question after question, and eventually they're like, okay, fine, come over and take a look at the house. Fine. So let's say that's not you. Let's say that you're a new agent and you're like, I don't want to do that. Let's say you're an experienced agent and you still don't want to do that, and you're like, my time is best served somewhere else. Okay, well, there is a solution for you. Get an ISA. An ISA stands for Inside Sales Agent, and there are a ton of companies out there who will call your FSBO and expired leads that you purchase on your behalf. So myplusleads.com costs, and this is just for the leads list, guys, it costs like $60 to get FSBO and expired. But you can take it a step further and get an inside sales agent or an ISA to call, and that is definitely going to run you more, because you have basically a VA, which is a virtual assistant, calling those leads for you. Definitely have an ISA contact for you. And again, the ROI is crazy. The return on your investment is still definitely worth it. And I'm just going to stop right here and say this, guys. You have to be willing to put in the necessary capital for the lead generation. And that's with anything. If you're not willing to put in a certain amount of capital and also do the follow through afterward, which is, yes, you're still going to put forth effort, you are still going to do your social media, your online presence, your follow up. You have to do those things. And if you're not willing to, then you're not going to get as much of a return on the investment as you'd like. And so no matter what you do, no matter what kind of investment that you're making, no matter what kind of lead gen you're doing, you have to be willing to take the necessary steps, So this kind of goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Get a headshot. Have your social media profiles filled out. Automate what needs to be automated. And we'll talk about this on a later podcast about what needs to be automated. How do you connect, etc. So seller lead gen, really, again, guys, there's no magic secret. You need to cold call or get somebody who will cold call for you. So yeah, guys, when it comes to lead generation, like we said, in a nutshell, what do you want to do? How do you want to market, and how much energy do you want to put into it? And that's it. I mean, once you know that, then you can kind of take off from there. Use this podcast as you will. You're going to learn a lot of trial and error. Some things may not work as well for you as it maybe they do for someone else, or vice versa, because everybody's individual, and you are running your own business. So the choice is ultimately up to you.
So just to recap, Zillow definitely has the market at the
buyer lead gen
at the moment, but we will see, because their prices have raised maybe 3 to 4 times in the past 2 to 3 years. So we'll see how that lasts. But the second thing is, like Didi said earlier, is listings, and there are platforms out there that you can start getting listings immediately with less capital.
Right. And so it all depends on what you want to do. And guys, that's it. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for coming. If you're listening to us, if you have made it this far, because we know it's a long podcast, we have a lot of information to give, and we're always excited to give the information to those who are willing to listen and, most importantly, implement it.
Exactly. So like, subscribe, smash that like button, guys.
Smash the like button. Follow us. And check us out on followingrealty.me.
And if you are in Florida, and maybe you're listening to this like down the line a little bit, and you're in Texas or California, and you really want a new kind of brokerage, go ahead and check us out. Click the link below, join our brokerage, and see if we're for you.
Yeah, and we will see you then, guys. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the next episode.